Today's LinkedIn Live. I could not be more excited. I know I'm excited about most of my guests, maybe all of my guests, but particularly excited about today's guest. I have Sasan Goodarzi, who is the CEO of Intuit, also a board member at Atlassian. We're going to focus today primarily on Intuit as well as Sasan's story. So let me bring you just up front with me here. Great. Thank you again for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Karen.
Yeah. So big fan of Intuit. As I was telling you in our pre-chat, I actually interviewed with Intuit a million years ago, and just always a company with such a great reputation. But before we dive into Intuit, and there are a lot of questions I have about that, I'd like to hear just a little bit of your story. You have such an interesting backstory, and I think also an inspiring backstory. So you came to the United States very early. I think you were around nine years old. You didn't have an easy time of it when you got here. You had some issues at school and prep school. I heard and read you were fired from McDonald's. There's just all this story here. And I know that is what made you the good leader, the amazing leader that you are today. Could you talk just briefly about your arrival here and how that shaped? So maybe some of the highlights of how that shaped you into who you are today.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, as you said, I immigrated here when I was 9 years old. I was born in Tehran, Iran, and back then, and I believe it's still the case, everybody wanted to come, to the US. And I was lucky. I was able to come here before the revolution in Iran. And as you may recall, there was a revolution. Iran took American hostages, and I was fortunate because I left before all of that started, but it impacted my life here greatly. At the age of 9, I was picked on every day, bullied every day, told to go back to my country just because of the situation with the American hostages. And that lived with me for years. I remember vividly my first year in college, when they would call out my name and there were other Iranians in the room, I would say I can't speak the language because I didn't want to be associated with being from Iran, only because of just the journey line that I had been on. And these things make you stronger. It makes you a better person. And what I skipped over is the fact that I had horrible grades. I got kicked out of school. In fact, my grades were so bad. I had a 1.9 GPA. I couldn't even get into a college. So I started out in a community college. But all these things, it's hard, but you learn from it, and that makes you stronger. And frankly, to this day, I don't take for granted being in the US. It's just with all the good and the opportunities that comes with the US, it's a blessing to be here.
Well, I smiled at the failing grades thing, but I mean, it's amazing that you survived all of that. And I think it probably speaks to resilience that you had, but also your ability to cope with that sort of change and disruption. And I know kids can be very cruel. And anyway, just speaks to who you are, that you were able to pull through that the way that you did.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. You've been at Intuit for a while now. There's been amazing success at Intuit under your helm. And I just read that for the 21st year in a row, Intuit was named one of Fortune's 100 best companies to work for, ranking number 11 on the list. So they're in the top percentile. How does this ethos of being the best company to work for play into the company's mission and culture?
Well, I'll start with just giving a lot of credit to our co-founder, Scott Cook, when he founded the company nearly 40 years ago. It was a company where it was all about two things, people and customers. And that's really, carried on for nearly 40 years. And I have the opportunity with our team to improve upon it and make it better. But first and foremost, it's just in the DNA of the company. And I think a couple of things, I would say there's probably three big things that, although over the years has evolved, really guides what we do every day. One is our mission, which is to power prosperity around the world. Our view is that whether it's the products and services that we create and or what we need to do to help the communities around us to make them better than when we found them, we need to do our part to power prosperity around the world. So that's sort of one thing that keeps us going every day. And I know it gets my heartbeat going every day to get up and try to do something that makes a positive impact. I would say the second thing is our values. Our values have evolved several times over our nearly 40-year history. We just evolved it actually about 18 months ago. But our values, although you'll see them here and there on our walls, it's something actually we live by. And the true test of our values is when we've opened up offices in places like Paris or Sydney, where we didn't even have really a product or a product market. We became known as one of the best places to work because our culture carries with us wherever we go. And the last thing is the way we set expectations. We have this thing called True North goals. We have goals for employees, customers, communities, and shareholders. It's how we run the company. We talk about our performance within the company and externally. And those three things just really guide who we are today, which is a company that is about doing what's right when nobody's looking, a people-first culture, but also very demanding relative to the environment we want to create for our customers and to really help fuel their success and power their prosperity. So although those things have evolved over the last 40 years, frankly, it's why I wanted to join nearly 18 years ago, because I wanted to be a part of something where I could learn and grow with the company. And it's been an amazing ride.
Yeah. One that you've contributed mightily to. I have to ask, I can understand, a purpose-driven company is clearly one that has high employee engagement. You've got a strong mission, you've got strong values. How do you keep the culture aligned with so many employees in so many different locations?
Well, we are pretty intentional about, first and foremost, in every setting. And I'll use an example. We have what we call State of the Company 4 times a year, where we get all of our 15,000 employees together to talk about how the company is doing, as just one example of how do we drive alignment. And the things that we always focus on is, the 3 things that I mentioned. We always talk about our mission and examples of how we're bringing our mission to life. Every single State of the Company, I go through our values. It's a refresher for those that have been with us, but it's also important for those that are new to the company to share how important they are. And then I walk through our True North goals, which is what I mentioned earlier. But beyond that, we talk about our 5 big bets that we've declared across the company. We declared these about 3 years ago. And we talk about the bets, we talk about problems that they go after for our customers, the vision for each of our 5 big bets. And we talk about the progress that we've made and where we are constructively dissatisfied. And I use the State of the Company as an example, but we have mechanisms that really brings to life those items that I just mentioned to really do our best to keep the company aligned. It may sound straightforward and easy, but it's the one thing we continuously do because, as you can imagine, our biggest power is and leverage is to align 15,000 folks. And the biggest challenge is to align 15,000 folks. So it's something we work very, very hard at.
Exactly. Not to take away from product development people at all. And, once you find your product market fit, you continue to deliver there. But the hard thing often is how do we create and execute these strategies internally to deliver on those promises we made to our customers. And so it sounds like you've got quite the system in place to do that. Another area where we sometimes see misalignment is in the M&A activity that a company does. So I know over the past, since you've become CEO, you've acquired MailChimp, you've acquired Credit Karma, I think Mint, maybe a few others that aren't such big buzzy names. How do you go about ensuring integration or partnership, sort of making sure that you're able to get the value from those mergers or acquisitions?
Sure. I have to start with the customer. When we refreshed our strategy and then declared 5 big bets about 3 years ago, we really shifted the customer problems we wanted to solve. And if I were to give you the elevator pitch, what I would say is 3+ years ago, we were a company that was focused on tax and accounting, a platform company, but really focused on solving those two very important problems. And really the shift that we made was that we wanted to be a company that, helped make ends meet, help you save money, help you get out of debt, and really fuel your success as a small business. And so we wanted to be a company that played a far bigger role in the lives of those that we serve. So that was really the from to shift that we declared that led to these 5 big bets. And as we looked at where we wanted to be, and for us, speed of impact is everything. We live in a world where impact matters, but the speed in which you do it matters a lot. And beyond accelerating our internal organic innovation, we felt like there were 2 areas where we needed to move much faster. One was, how do we help small businesses grow their business? Because typically what we've done is to really help you run your business. And the other is, how do we move beyond tax to serve consumers more broadly? And I start there because being really aligned and having conviction around our customer problems is really what led to, where do we accelerate organically? Then where do we have an opportunity to really accelerate inorganically? And that's really what led to the acquisition of Credit Karma and MailChimp. So that's sort of one very important element. The other is, there was, as you can imagine, so much work that before it led to those acquisitions. I'll use Credit Karma as an example. Really establishing a relationship with Ken, the founder and CEO of Credit Karma, really understanding our missions aligned. Is the world that we're trying to create aligned? And just getting excited about, is there something we can do together that we can't do apart? And that is very, very important, because at the end of the day, culture alignment and strategy alignment is very important. And that took a lot of conversations. And then, of course, when we made the acquisition, I love quotes. And one of the quotes I use a lot in the company is, life is about 1% inspiration and 99% inspiration. Exactly. And so then it's really being maniacal about, what are the few priorities that we have that will accelerate innovation for customers, and how do we ensure we stay aligned with, in this case, Credit Karma and of course MailChimp, to really deliver wins for customers. Because when you do that, then it feels like you're winning internally, and that's where it's no longer about an acquisition. In fact, I don't like that word, because it feels like you're gobbling up something, but more about a family that comes together to do amazing things for customers. So they're all work in progress. Every acquisition is, but that's sort of our methodology to make sure that we can get the best out of the investment, so we can do amazing things for customers.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you're providing a way for people, both at the legacy organizations as well as the new members of the family, to see how their individual roles make a clear and direct impact on your customer and play into the vision and mission of the organization. And it's hard for an employee to ask for a lot more than that, to be able to see the impact that they're making. I'm imagining you're not having a difficult time retaining employees during, quote, the Great Resignation because of that. So again, so I'd also like to ask a little bit more about you, now that we know more about Intuit. So one of the things that I heard you say, you like quotes, I'm going to give you one back. You said, the greatest pleasure in life is beating the expectations, is doing what people tell you can't do, right? So I can hear maybe some of your childhood coming out of that. How did that come to be your favorite quote or your big inspiration?
Yeah, well, of all quotes, that is my favorite. In fact, if I were to turn this camera around, you would see it right there sitting on my desk. I would say, Karen, it was born out of, when I came to the US and shared some of the experiences I was having about, hey, go back to your country, you don't belong here, you're bad people. I also was just always told, whether it was in school and ultimately even at home, that, hey, you can't amount to much because you're just not trying. Yeah, you're not doing good. And so I was told most of my life what I can't do. And frankly, I think I deserved it. Although I was having the experiences that I mentioned, from the outside looking in, it almost would seem like, I'm not giving it a try, or I'm not, trying, I'm visiting Pity City too long and relocating there versus doing something about it. And I would say that the thing that I learned over time, whether it was getting fired from McDonald's or getting kicked out of school or not being able to actually get into a university where I had to start with a community college, I really had to just teach myself that anything is possible. And if I listen to others versus listen to myself, I'll never achieve what's possible. I'll never become the best version, of myself. And that is what motivated me to be the best version of myself, be resilient, and why I love that quote of doing things that no one ever imagined possible, but also not letting people around you shape what you think you can and cannot do. Because at the end of the day, I believe that each individual controls their destiny. And it was something that I had to come to peace with, to just be resilient, work hard, and imagine that it will be a better day tomorrow than it is today. And what I've learned, throughout life, looking back, that anything is possible as long as, you work hard at it, you want it, you're passionate about it. And more importantly, not letting others shape what's possible, but letting yourself shape what's possible. And so that's why I love that quote. And it's my favorite quote.
It's a great one. It's a really great one. It's all about locus of control, right? You have to just focus on those things you can actually do something about and focus yourself, as you've clearly done. So that's how you've made your way through. And now Intuit, I'm curious about what's next for Intuit. How do you actually help bring prosperity to people all over the world? Because that's not a small task. And in fact, it might be something that someone would say you can't do. So how is Intuit sort of gearing itself up for this challenge?
Well, Karen, I'll start from within. One of the most important things are that employees feel like we're doing something together to power their prosperity, to help them achieve what's possible, to help them achieve their career aspirations, to help them do the best work of their life, to work in an environment where their manager cares about them. Because at the end of the day, and I'm not saying we're perfect at this by any means, but it's something we work hard at, because in order to power prosperity for those outside of the company, we have to start from within. And there's a lot that we try to do to create an environment that is inclusive, an environment where you can bring your whole self to work, an environment where you can do your best work with diverse talent, so you can in fact do amazing things for customers. And to answer the second part of your question, well, how do we, what's next? First of all, I think we're just getting started. I mean, if you think about the company that we were 3 years ago, which by the way took nearly 37 years to get to a company that was a platform company that solved two very important problems, tax and accounting. As I look at the next 5-10 years, I can't even imagine 40 years, because speed matters.
Yes.
We want to be a company that becomes a household name, a company that's helped you as an individual with financial literacy, a company that's helped consumers thrive and ways to power your prosperity. Small businesses, which we serve, as you know, they are 50%. Yeah, there you go. You are one of them. It is folks like yourself that power 50% of the global economy. Folks like you are responsible for over 50% of all the hiring that happens. This happens with small businesses. And so we want to be that household name that helps you from when you're a kid and a student. And if you choose to follow your personal passion and be an entrepreneur, we want to be that company that has a platform that actually helps you thrive. So that's really what's next. Is we have a job undone, a job unfinished. And we want to do everything that we can in our power to make a real impact in the everyday lives of those that we serve. And we've got a long ways to go. We're excited about it, fired up about it, and can't wait to see what we do as a company looking forward 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, well, we'll keep track too. I'm sure it will be amazing. There's just so much innovation going on in the space today. So more to come. So I know that you and your wife started a foundation. I'd love to hear more about that. And I understand the mission is around helping women or females of Iranian descent in California. Maybe you could just sort of clarify that a bit and talk about how you came to that and sort of how it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, we have two kids, Pasha and Ariana, and just observing even our own daughter growing up and just observing and learning some of the things that happens in the world around that was happening around our daughter, which is just shaping what a woman can and can't do. And it's a realization that every one of us have an opportunity to create equity in the world. And particularly in this case, Shireen and I decided several years ago, we see so many female engineers that could be amazing, but they don't actually get equal chances. Whether the household that they come from, whether it's what they're told they can and can't do. And so we decided what we need more technical women engineers in the world. And we saw that there are so many that just don't get the same chances as men do. And so we decided to start a foundation, which is to really help these women that want to be engineers, they want to have computer science degrees, but they don't have the wherewithal, and for us to pay for their school through our foundation. Now, we started with those that are the Iranian descent. Our goal is to grow, beyond the Iranian descent. And we, particularly Shireen, interviews to really get to know them. And then ultimately we decide, which ones we provide scholarships to. And it's not a one and done, from years ago when we started this, Shireen still keeps in touch with all women engineers that are now, some of them are now in the workplace working, and it creates, friendships and a network. So that's why we do it. We think it's really important. And we think that something we didn't publicize before, but we got advice from a powerful, influential woman that said you should, in fact, publicize this because you need more people to do this, more people to contribute in ways that are possible if they can financially. And we admire the ability to be able to do it, and we want to over time expand it.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled you're publicizing it. First of all, because I think awareness is, key to anything, that this problem still exists. I think a lot of people think we conquered this, but no, we haven't. As a female engineer myself, I absolutely remember being told in job interviews, we can't hire you for this job because the wives wouldn't have it, because the rest of the workforce was male. I mean, just things like that you don't think would actually happen. But to have a network of people who can support you through moments like that and show you the path and a way forward, I think this just plays back again to who you are around resilience, right? It's helping them become more resilient, providing support for that. So,
and our view is the more women in leadership roles, the more women in technology, the more others can see what's possible. And I think the world is changing slowly, better, but we're headed in the right direction, and I'm excited about the future.
Yes. And all of that is better because people step up to make it better. So thank you and her for your work in this area. What's the name of the foundation?
It's the Goodarzi. We call it the Good Foundation, the Goodarzi Foundation.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. And then my last question has to do with you again. The tagline for my business is up and to the right. Actually, in video, I think I have to go this way because that's the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we always want to be. Was there a seminal moment in your life when you knew that you and your career were moving in that direction?
I wish I could make something up that made a great tagline, but I would just say it's the accumulation of things that happened over time. I never really saw myself as someone that now has the moment that I believe that, I will go up and to the right. I've just always believed in keeping my head down, hard work, resilience, and creating an environment where our teams could win. And that has led over time to something better. If I were to point to a moment that I probably gained more confidence in myself as to what's possible than any other moment, albeit it is not just about this moment, when at the time, one of the top executives of Honeywell, which is a company that I worked for, when I was in sales, flew down to spend an entire day with me to learn what we were doing and what I was doing, because our sales were growing, very fast. And I remember at the end of the day, literally spent all day together. And I remember at the end of the day, when I took him to the airport, he looked at me and he said, I think you're a gem, and I think you have a bright future. And that sort of stuck with me in the back of my mind, but not something that really I thought a lot about. But it was one of those moments where I felt like, going back to that famous quote, anything is possible, and don't let anyone ever tell you what you can't do. But it wasn't just about that moment, but one I vividly remember.
Yeah. Well, certainly a moment where you were seen and acknowledged, and we all need more of those. So kudos to him for making the time and expressing himself. Well, Sasan, we're at the end of our time. Thank you so much. I think we've all learned from this, and certainly could go on, but I know we have time constraints today. I really appreciate, again, you making the time for this, and be well and take good care.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Karen. It was a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Thank you.